Hey everyone, it's Jennifer. Right now in card making, embossing pastes and stencils are very popular. So in this video today, I'm going to show you how to do textured embossing pastes and also how to use stencils in a few different ways. Now here's my card. I'll be honest with you, I don't love it. However, I think of card making kind of like I think of cooking. I may not end up with the perfect meal, but somebody will enjoy it and it kind of serves its purpose. So I just always keep everything. So I thought I'd go ahead and share it with you in case you like some of the tips and tricks I did along the way. So you'll see there's some texture to that embossing paste for the clouds and also some sparkle to the rain in the background. So let's go ahead and get started and I can show you some of these techniques. I have a piece of kind of pool colored cardstock that I'm going to tape into place on my work surface. And I have this new this new stencil from My Favorite Things. It does raindrops and I'm going to tape that on place over it. Now, I don't need a whole lot of tape because I'm not doing embossing paste. This time I'm going to use ink. I have my favorite ink color peacock feathers from the Distress Ink line, and I'm using my ink blending tool to pull the color kind of from the bottom of the raindrops up. I'm not taking much time to make this even or smooth. I want it to kind of be uneven and not perfect. So once I've covered the whole stencil, I'm just going to quickly wipe it with a baby wipe to clean all the color from the top of the stencil. So I have my color in the little raindrops. Now I have a little sponge dauber and I'm going to put some Versamark on top of these also so that I can emboss it when I remove the stencil. I first used a sponge dauber and I decided that was taking too long, so I am just taking my ink pad and squishing it right on top of the stencil, pressing down into it. So now I have all those raindrops also covered with some sticky ink, so I can add some embossing powder. I'm adding some Judikins Iridescent Sparkle embossing powder just so that there's a little sparkle to these drops. Now when I do this is actually a clear powder with sparkle. What it's going to do is make my drops even darker. And that's one of the things I didn't like about this card is the raindrops are so dark. In hindsight, I would have skipped the blue ink altogether and just did Versamark raindrops, which would give us a tone-on-tone softer look when we added the embossing powder. But that's one of the things that I would do if I did this card over again. Now I'm going to go ahead and add my clouds with a little bit of textured embossing paste, and this is so easy to do. I'm going to take that same background piece and tape it onto my work surface, and then I'm going to tape this cloud stencil from My Favorite Things on top. If you don't have a cloud stencil, you could just take a piece of cardstock and die cut a bunch of clouds from it and use that as a stencil if you wanted to. Now I'm going to tape this in place really good because I'm going to be adding lots of embossing paste to this. So I'm using some painter's tape here. I have my favorite white embossing paste. Now usually I like to use this tool that you see, this purple handled tool, to put an even coat, like a smooth even coat over my stencil. That's how I prefer it. We're going to do something a little different in a minute, but this is how I normally apply it. Now I recently found this new tool that is great to use with stencils, and I'll have the link below in my description and on my blog. You'll see this large tool here. This is perfect for kind of spreading it across a stencil and making it even and doing it very quickly. I'll be using this tool in future videos, but I wanted to show you because I recently found it and I tried it out here. But as I was doing this, I decided to try something new. So what I'm going to do is actually leave some thick texture over these clouds. So you'll see I'm putting it on very uneven and leaving it kind of splotchy and kind of bumpy. I want that texture to my embossing paste so that it looks like fluffy clouds when I'm done. And we're going to do something else to it in a minute to add even more fluffiness. So I'm putting this on pretty thick, uneven, kind of bumpy. It looks absolutely terrible, but in the end, I promise it'll look better. When you're working with embossing paste, you want to make sure that you clean off all your work surfaces before it dries. So I'm going to take this stencil and run it under soapy water, and I'll clean off my tools also. Now I want these clouds to have some sparkle, so I'm going to take some iridescent sparkle embossing powder that we used before on the raindrops, and I'm going to sprinkle it onto this wet embossing paste, and this will give us some sparkle to our clouds and also help with the technique that we're about to do. Now normally when I use embossing powder on my embossing paste, I let the paste dry before I heat set the powder to prevent bubbling of the paste. However, in this case, when I add the heat to it right away, which if you watch the clouds closely here, you'll see that the paste starts to kind of bubble and it creates like this fluffiness to the clouds that really looks cool with the clouds. So it adds this texture to your embossing paste. So basically what I'm doing here is heating both the paste and the embossing powder at once, and it causes that bubbling effect of the paste. So this is just another way you can use your embossing powders and embossing paste together to get some fun texture to your embossing paste. You could skip the powder and still get some bubbling. It kind of gives this molten look to your paste if you heat it instead of let it dry on its own. I'm heating it from the back too, just to make sure that it really is heat set and dry. And there you have some fluffy clouds. I love how soft this stuff is. It doesn't crack, and it just gives the look of clouds that really adds to this card. So now I've got this crazy busy background, and I'm not in love with it, so I'm going to keep the rest of the card pretty simple, and it ends up working out okay in the end. For the greeting, I decided to add it as a strip across the bottom of the card. I'm using a stamp set from My Favorite Things. It has lots of greetings that work great with these clouds, rains, and sunshine. So I'm going to stamp one of these with black ink along the bottom of a piece of white cardstock that's cut to 4 1/4 inches wide, which is the same width as my card. So now that I have it lined up with the bottom of the paper, I'm going to trim off the top. This is just easier than trying to center or cut the right piece or right width of paper. Now I have a sun that I die cut from this My Favorite Things die set, and I'm going to put some adhesive along the bottom rays of the sunshine and adhere it to the back of my greeting strip. Now I want to make sure that this stays really good onto the front of our card, so I'm going to use a long strip of foam tape and add it right over the card. So even though I don't love the card in the end, I think somebody might enjoy getting it, so I'm going to use it anyways. And also I just wanted to show you a fun way to get a textured kind of fluffy look to your embossing paste, and also a couple different ways you can use a stencil. Now if you're interested in any of these products, they're linked below in my YouTube description. You can also head over to my blog at jennifermcguireinc.com, where I have much more information, including links to some other ways that you can use products like these. Thanks so much for stopping by.